going on, YouTube, and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It is Kevin Forte, and today we are coming to you live from Long Island, New York. So today we are looking at the Islanders, and as you guys can see from the title, I don't know about you guys. What do you guys think of the thumbnail today? It is pretty cold, right? I really like how that came out, but that's besides the point, because unfortunately the product on the ice is not nearly as good as the thumbnail for the New York Islanders. The Islanders record 5-5-3. They're currently on a 4-game losing streak. They've lost 5 of their last 6 games. And I have not been able to go to a lot of Islander games this year. I did go to that game. Their home opener is the last game I went to where they played the Buffalo Sabres, and it really seems like that was a good move because since then they have not played that well. So right now, the Islanders, everything that can go wrong is going wrong. And what's even more frustrating for the Islanders is they've been doing this at home. They've been doing this at home with a healthy roster, and they're still playing as bad as they are. Now, a lot of this has to do with the mismanagement, I think, of Lane Lambert. Lane Lambert has not done a good job for the Islanders. I have to be completely honest with you. I am not a fan of Lambert. I heard the Locked On Isles guy, I forgot his name, but he's really good. He broke it down really well. And it's basically, Lambert would be a great coach on another team that maybe has a little bit more to work with. Because the Islanders, let's be honest, the Islanders don't have a lot to work with. They just don't. The Islanders are not in a spot where their roster is super good. And they're just not there. They're not super talented. They don't have all these great players that can put the puck in the back of the net. And, you know, some of that falls on the lap of Lou Lamoriello. I'll be the first one to tell you that. I think everyone's upset with Lane Lambert, and rightfully so. He has not done the best at his job that he can, but with what he has to work with, that comes down to Lou Lamoriello. And that's where I think right now for the Islanders, you know, if you want any bit of optimism out of this, is this West Coast road trip right now. And tonight, which I'll be doing that video, I will be live streaming the game here on the channel. Not actually live streaming the game, the NHL. I want you to hear that. This is a reaction. We're just going to be, it's a watch party. We're not going to actually be showing the live stream of the game, but the Islanders start the West Coast road trip in Canada. And if you want any glimmer of hope, it's going to be this trip. 3 of the 4 teams that the Islanders will be playing on this Western Canadian road trip are horrible right now. The Islanders have a real chance here to do something, to fix their problems and turn things around. And sometimes the best thing to do for a team is to go on that West Coast road trip, or the road trip on the opposite side of the continent. And we've seen teams do that, right? The Ducks early in the season did that. They beat Boston, Philly, Pittsburgh. They beat some really good teams on the East Coast and then went back home. And they're kind of finding success a little bit. The Rangers kind of stumbled out of the gate. The preseason wasn't that inspiring. Then they go on that Western Canadian road trip, and they have not looked the same since then. They have been much, much better under Laviolette, and everybody thinks that's one of the best hires of the offseason. So for the Islanders, they're in that situation now. You go on the Western Canadian road trip, the fans booing and fire Lane Lambert. You're not going to be hearing any of that, at least for the next 4 games. Find a way to win 3 of those 4 games, and everyone will shut up on Long Island. Everyone will leave you alone for a couple of days. But all kidding aside, if the Islanders come home from this road trip with 8 wins, that is a huge victory for the Islanders and is a testament to that maybe the team just needed to get away. So that's the optimistic side. Let's get to the negative side. There have not been injuries to this team. So if for any reason we start to see like a Bo Horvat go down, or a Barzell, or a Pelech, or Pulak, or one of the goalies, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a problem for the Islanders because the way they play, and I will say this, the goaltending has been solid for the most part. Sorokin has looked a little bit shaky, and Varlamov gave up 3 to the Capitals, but I can't really blame that loss on Varlamov, those were quality opportunities for the Capitals that they scored on. So it's hard to blame Varlamov for the goals that the Caps scored. And that's kind of been the story for the entire season for both goalies for the Islanders. If the Islanders defense and the team in front of them plays really well, the Islanders get that shutout. They have gotten a couple already. They can get shutouts. It's when the team in front of them is able to do what they need to do, right? So if there's an injury here, unless it's to someone like Anders Lee, and God rest his soul, I love Anders Lee, but if the Islanders were to lose Anders Lee right now, it wouldn't be the worst thing. But for everybody else, this team has not been banged up yet. And what happens when this team gets injured? That is really concerning. Another thing is the opposite effect. If they come back to New York with a 5-8-4 record or something to that magnitude, well, there is going to be changes made. I think this road trip is going to force Lamoriello's hand. Unless he is that stubborn, we have seen this before. Lou Lamoriello has done that before, but he's also done the inverse. When he was with the Devils, his coach was at the top of the division and fired his ass. So even if you're at the top of the division, it's not guaranteed you have a job with Lou Lamoriello. So we're going to find out here how invested and how much more leash Lamoriello or how much leash Lambert has. Which also brings me to my other point. This could be a situation where Lamoriello is protecting himself. And if Lamoriello is smart, he would wait till the offseason and say, all right, we're getting rid of Lambert. And that's his scapegoat. If he gets rid of Lambert right now, this next coaching hire for Lou Lamoriello very well is going to be his last head coaching hire for the New York Islanders. I put a point of emphasis on that first. I made that dramatic pause for a reason. Because I truly believe this is it for Lou Lamoriello. I know it. If the Islanders cannot find a way to muster this up on the Western Canadian road trip and find a way back to the playoffs with Elaine Lambert, this will be the last hire. This will be the last hire for Lamoriello. And I think for the Islanders right now, they're losing in so many different ways, which is frustrating, right? They lose 4-1 to the Capitals. They don't play well in their games that they've been playing recently. Like, they lost to Boston 5-2, Minnesota 4-2. They had a lead in that game, 2-1. A 4-3 loss to Carolina. That was gut-wrenching because that was a game they were winning 3-0 and lost. So you go back to the beginning of the season, not only the Islanders losing games like Boston where they just never really had a chance, but games where they had 2-1, 3-0 leads, and still lost. They find ways. We usually talk about teams find ways to win. That's everybody else that plays the Islanders. They are finding ways to win. Which means the inverse is for the Islanders. They are finding ways actively to lose. Whether they're doing it on purpose or not, I don't think it's on purpose, but they're finding ways to lose. And you can't afford to do that with this roster for an entire season. The Islanders don't have the firepower and roster to come back and win 15 games in a row when everything goes great. They don't have that power. Let's be honest. The Islanders are going to have to grind their way back into the playoff picture. Winning 3, losing 1. Winning 2, losing 2. All right, it's a draw. They're going to have to do that the entire season, and it's going to come down to the wire. And we remember how things have gone for the Islanders the past couple years. Whether it was getting home ice advantage, making the playoffs, it is by measly points. 5 points, 2 points. Buffalo last year by 1 point. That Carolina game, a 3-0 lead for the Islanders, they lose it in overtime. That's a point they lost and 2 they gave to a divisional opponent. Minnesota, yeah, it was a 2-1 lead, and at least that team was on the West Coast, but they are in the Midwest, so they're in the Western Conference. But they still lost that game. That's 2 points the Islanders still lost. there are so many things about this Islanders team that are not good. It's hard to focus on the good. You know, Jean-Gabriel Pageau still has yet to score a goal. Maybe he scored one. Anders Lee, rest his soul. He is so good at being a captain and a leader for the Islanders. But Lord heaven help this guy on the ice. He cannot play. He doesn't fit anywhere in the Islanders' top six. He doesn't. He can't play with Bo Horvat. They are way too similar in style of play. That's why the Islanders needed a playmaker at center. I love Bo Horvat, but that's what they needed there. Okay? He doesn't fit there. He really doesn't fit on the second line either, because Nelson is just as much the same type of player as Lee. So on either of those top two lines, Lee does not help. And when you have two guys on that line, whether it's Lee and Horvat, or I don't mean slow, but I mean in the sense of more of like a power forward, right? Because Nelson and Horvat are power forwards. And then you add Lee into that line, whether it's the first or second line, it doesn't work. There's not enough speed when Lee instantly gets onto that line. And for the Islanders, it's so frustrating to watch just what this team was, right, in 2020 and in 2021 when they closed out the Nassau Coliseum. I was there when they won. Anthony Beauvillier, the game-winning goal in Game 6 in overtime over the Tampa Bay Lightning, throwing beer on the ice, as stupid as I thought that was. I get goosebumps. I'm getting chills just remembering that. But the reality is, the Islanders are not that team anymore. Barry Trotz is no longer here. Devon Tays is no longer here. This is a different team. And the Islanders are having a hard time letting go. That team that they had and that structure and everything they had worked for a time. Worked during the right era at the right time with the right combination of guys. But they don't have that anymore. The Islanders have to fire Lane Lambert. And I don't care who they bring in. I don't even know who they could bring in. That's the other thing. Who do you bring in? Do you bring in Jay Woodcroft from Edmonton, who his team's going to play defense if their life depended on it? That's not the answer. He doesn't fit the Islanders' system and play style. Who do the Islanders bring in? And I hate wishing somebody losing a job, but I think it's just necessary. And I'm giving the benefit of the doubt. They give the 4 games here on this road trip to see if they could figure it out. And like I said, if the Islanders don't have at least a 7 in the win column, probably an 8 in honesty. If they don't have a 7 or 8 in the win column coming back to UBS later this month, that's a wrap. That's a wrap for Lane Lambert. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. And if they don't turn things around under the new head coach, well, we'll worry about that when we get there, but things could get really interesting for the Islanders next summer. And the fall just started. It didn't even technically start yet, but we're already talking about next summer. I forgot what it was like for a little bit, what it was like being a New York Islanders fan. I'm starting to remember. Starting to remember the real New York Islanders teams that I remember growing up with, and this is what they look like right now. So guys, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. What do you guys think of the New York Islanders? Do you think they should fire Lane Lambert? And if so, who should replace him as the next head coach of the Islanders? Guys, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one. Peace out, guys.